Let's start with the ones who got lucky and work our way towards the ones who had absolutely no business being that rich. Number 10. Ronald Wayne. This is Ronald Wayne. In 1976, he was a 41-year-old Atari employee who co-founded Apple alongside Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. He owned 10% of the company, 10% of Apple in 1976. He sold his stake for $800, not $800 million, not $800,000. $800 to be fair. He also received another $5,500 settlement shortly after. So let's not be dramatic. The man walked away with $2,300 total. Today, that 10% stake would be worth somewhere around $300 billion, which is a number so large it stops meaning anything. Wayne's reasoning was completely sound at the time. He thought Jobs was a reckless spender. The company was a financial risk. And as the oldest partner, he would have been personally liable for any debts. So he made a rational, careful, well-considered decision, and it cost him $300 billion. He has since said he has no regrets, which is exactly what someone who has been at peace with themselves for 50 years would say. And also exactly what someone who cannot afford to have regrets would say. Number 9. Jamie Siminoff. In 2013, Jamie Siminoff appeared on Shark Tank with a doorbell that connected to your smartphone. The sharks passed. Every single one of them looked at a video doorbell and said no. He went home, kept building the company, renamed it Ring, and in 2018, Amazon acquired it for roughly $1 billion. The shark who came closest to investing was Kevin O'Leary, who offered a royalty deal that Siminoff turned down. O'Leary has since described watching the Amazon acquisition announcement. He has not elaborated further on how that felt, but based on available information, it was probably not great. Ring is now installed in millions of American homes. The company that no room full of professional investors wanted is now one of the most recognizable smart home brands in the country. Thankfully, the sharks had plenty of other successful investments to think about instead. Number 8. Peter Lynch's Magellan Fund Investors. Between 1977 and 1990, Peter Lynch ran the Fidelity Magellan Fund and averaged a 29.2% annual return. The fund went from $18 million to $14 billion under his management. By any reasonable metric, this was the greatest mutual fund run in American history. The unlucky part is that the average investor in the fund actually lost money. Not because the fund performed poorly, because investors kept panic selling every time the market dropped, then buying back in after it recovered. They were in the best performing fund of their generation and still managed to get it wrong by simply refusing to sit still. The ones who got lucky were the ones who did absolutely nothing. They invested, ignored every news cycle, ignored every dip, ignored every alarming headline, and ended up with life-changing returns. Their strategy was to have no strategy. It worked extremely well. Number 7. The early PayPal investors. In 1999, PayPal was a small startup trying to figure out what it even wanted to be. The early investors who got in, including Peter Thiel, who also co-founded the company, were betting on a digital wallet concept that most people thought was unnecessary since regular wallets already existed and worked fine. Then eBay happened. Sellers and buyers on eBay needed a fast, trusted way to send money online, and PayPal filled that gap so aggressively that eBay eventually just bought the company in 2002 for $1.5 billion. The more interesting part of this story is what happened after. The PayPal founders and early team, now known as the PayPal Mafia, took that exit money and invested it into companies like LinkedIn, YouTube, Yelp, and Tesla, which means the original PayPal investment effectively funded a significant portion of the modern internet. One lucky early bet, followed by a long chain of slightly less lucky but still extraordinary bets. Number 6. The early Amazon investors. In 1994, Jeff Bezos was driving across the country, writing a business plan for an online bookstore. He raised his first $1 million from around 60 investors, most of whom were friends, family, and random angel investors willing to bet $50,000 on a guy selling books out of a garage. Those initial investors received roughly 1% of Amazon each for their $50,000 invested in that garage became, theoretically, $20 billion. The returns on that particular investment are difficult to express in normal human language. The interesting thing is that Bezos reportedly told every one of those early investors there was a 70% chance they would lose everything. He was very upfront about the risk. Most people said no. The 60 who said yes became among the luckiest investors in American financial history, largely by ignoring the man telling them not to. Number 5. John Templeton's World War II bet in 1939. As Europe descended into war and the American stock market was collapsing, John Templeton borrowed $10,000 and told his broker to buy $100 worth of every single stock, trading under $1 on every major American exchange. His broker thought he had lost his mind. He he bought 104 companies. 34 of them were already in bankruptcy. 4 years later, all but 4 of those companies had recovered. The $10,000 investment turned into roughly $40,000, a 300% return during one of the most terrifying economic periods in modern history. Templeton went on to become one of the greatest investors of the 20th century, eventually building a fortune worth over $1 billion and being knighted for his contributions to philanthropy. But it all started with a borrowed $10,000 and the willingness to buy stocks that everyone else was actively fleeing. Truly, the secret to great investing is simply to do the thing that makes everyone around you deeply uncomfortable. Number 4. The Apple IPO investors. In 1980, Apple went public at $22 per share. On the first day of trading, shares shot up to $29. It was the largest IPO since Ford in 1956, and it instantly created more millionaires than any company in history up to that point. The people who held those shares, rather than selling immediately after the first day pop, participated in one of the greatest long-term wealth creation events in stock market history. A single share purchased at $22 in 1980, accounting for all splits, the adjusted cost basis is now fractions of a cent per current share. The math on holding Apple from 1980 to today is the kind of math that requires a separate piece of paper. Let's just say that $1,000 invested in Apple at IPO, with dividends reinvested and splits accounted for, is now worth somewhere comfortably north of $2 million, comfortably, which is an understatement so severe it borders on irresponsible. Number 3. Warren Buffett's early partners. In 1956, Warren Buffett opened a small investment partnership in Omaha, Nebraska, with $105,000 from 7 limited partners, mostly family members and close friends. He was 25 years old. His initial management fee was essentially nothing, and he put his own money in alongside theirs. Over the next 13 years, the partnership returned roughly 2,900% in total. The partners who stayed in from the beginning, and several did, turned modest investments into life-altering sums. And then, crucially, Buffett converted the partnership into a holding company called Berkshire Hathaway. A single share of Berkshire Hathaway Class A stock in the early 1960s cost around $7. Today, it trades at over $700,000 per share. The people who were simply close enough to a 25-year-old in Omaha to be asked and said yes, participated in arguably the most documented wealth compounding journey in financial history. The lesson, as always, is to know the right 25-year-old. Number 2. The Bitcoin early adopters. In 2010, a programmer named Laszlo Hanyecz made history by purchasing 2 pizzas for 10,000 Bitcoin. At the time, this was considered a reasonable transaction. Bitcoin was worth essentially nothing. The concept of digital currency was treated as an internet hobby, and the pizzas were reportedly quite good. Those 10,000 Bitcoin are today worth somewhere between $600 million and $1 billion, depending on the day you check. The people who accumulated Bitcoin in 2009 and 2010, back when you could mine hundreds of coins on a standard laptop and simply did not lose their hard drives, did not forget their passwords, and did not sell everything for pizza or anything else, turned a digital curiosity into one of the most dramatic personal wealth events in history. The unlucky part is that thousands of early holders did exactly that. They sold. They lost the drives. They forgot the passwords. The ones who got rich were not necessarily smarter. They were simply the ones who did not accidentally throw away a hard drive containing $300 million. An easy mistake, in fairness. Number 1. The Microsoft IPO investors. On March 13, 1986, Microsoft went public at $21 per share. The offering raised $61 million, and by the end of the day, shares had climbed to $28. Bill Gates became a billionaire at $30. Paul Allen became a billionaire. 13 other Microsoft employees became millionaires that same afternoon. But the real story is the ordinary investors, the ones who simply bought shares at IPO and held them through every crash, every antitrust battle, every moment when Microsoft looked finished, every decade when something newer seemed to have replaced it. A single $21 share purchased at IPO in 1986 has split 9 times since then. Accounting for all splits, that one share became 288 shares. At today's prices, that original $21 investment is worth somewhere around $115,000. And that's just one share. The investors who put in $10,000 on day one and never touched it are sitting on over $50 million today, entirely passively, entirely by doing nothing after a single afternoon decision in 1986. There is no strategy there, no genius, no edge. Just the extraordinary, almost offensive luck of being in the right brokerage account on the right Tuesday in March, 40 years ago.